indeedy do. That is the Forgotten Sports theme. I'm Gretel Killeen. I'm filling in for James Valentine. And we are about to do a little more of our intrepid reporting because we are going to speak to someone who not only has a sport that's been ignored, but it's been ignored because he invented it. But now we're bringing it into the spotlight. Isn't that right, Kirk Docker?
That's exactly right. Invented, I don't know if I can claim invented.
Yes, I'm not sure you can claim invented either.
Maybe repurposed. Wall ball's, I suppose, a combination of a few things. It's
a wall and a ball?
That's right.
Yep.
It's got its sort of origins at high school where you played with a tennis ball against a wall, and we call it down ball in Victoria where I grew up.
What did you call it? Wait a minute, you've got so many facts flying around. We called it... Were you ever allowed to play with another human being?
Well, I think different states had different names for it, but we've done some research since we've been playing wall ball, and we found that the origin of the ball we use, which is called the Spalding, which is a sort of a rubbery sort of ball, is its origins in 1949 and was created for kids in New York who had nothing to do because they were in these streets with not many parks, so they created this ball that they could play around in the streets. So the ball's been around for a while. And apparently the game wall ball is quite popular in prisons because the ball doesn't cost much and there's plenty of walls there. So claiming the way that we play, I think, is quite original, but the actual idea of throwing a ball against the wall and hitting it with your hand is by no means original.
All right, let me ask you some questions. Because when I was growing up, we played a game called King Ping, which was for people who had friends, which clearly some of you may not there, Kirk Docker, because you've got to play with a wall. But we would play opposite each other, or we'd have a grid. There would be 4 approximate squares. So we either played doubles or singles.
We called that 4 square.
Right, always one ahead, aren't you? And we used a tennis ball. What did you use?
Well, we used to use a tennis ball too, or a mini basketball. Because that sort of slowed it down. It meant you could sort of possibly dive for it and do something spectacular. But
you know what I'm suspecting, Kirk? I'm wondering if you're that good at it, because when we played, the whole point was speed.
Oh, yeah. Well, all right, let's get on to wall ball now, because that's the most important game these days.
Oh, is it? Fire away. Tell me.
Yeah. Well, wall ball, if you imagine we have a wall outside our house. So this is where it began, because I live in a lane and there's a few boys who live next door to me, and we, over the summer, started hanging out in the street and realised there was a great wall there to hit a ball against. And started playing almost a squash-type game where you'd paddle the ball down where it'd bounce first, hit the wall, and then rebound off the wall.
Amazing.
And then the skill is in then hitting the ball before it bounces twice, and getting it back in play. Similar sort of idea to squash. But the trick is, behind us is also another wall because we're in a lane. So you're allowed to let it hit the back of that wall, bounce off, and then continue play on some type of, angle. It's about angles and precision, drop shots, power. There's lots of elements to it. And then we realised that, there's this small square on the wall, because I think wall ball's about understanding your surroundings and choosing the appropriate wall. So we've got a small section on the wall. It's like a rippled concrete, and when the ball hits that, it bounces in weird ways. So that we call the Sudoku square, because it's unpredictable. So that's my actual nickname in the game.
So that's your
Sudoku.
That's your golden triangle.
Well, that's right.
Anything can happen.
Well, it's progressed because there's a thin element from the court where you can get quite a lot of angle, and one of our players is Jed the Delicatessen, because when he enters that area, it's the D zone, the Delicatessen area, and he ham slices a real thin, as it just slips against the wall. We call that a ham slice.
Do you mind me asking, Kirk, would you say you're representative of the generation that doesn't want to grow up?
Well, yeah, there's a fair argument. But you may laugh, but we've had tournaments up to 32 people playing because we play a doubles game.
Well, how fabulous! Do you wear a uniform?
No. You got to short shorts.
Do girls play?
Yeah, we're not. Sort of imagine like the Formula One. If you're good enough to play, anyone can play.
Really? And I understand you're exporting this, taking it overseas.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. People are watching. Thanks to social networking and everyone having a camera on their phone, we've taken photos and a bit of video, and people have watched it going, hang on, I used to like playing that game myself. So a chapter started in Melbourne. There's another chapter in Sydney. There's a chapter in London.
Are you calling it a...
Beirut.
Why are you calling it a chapter as opposed to a club or a group?
I don't think we gave it much thought. We just thought the word chapter sounded cool.
It does sound cool.
Yeah.
It sounds very cool.
We don't really have a club, a house, I suppose, except for our own house, which is there. So chapter no real rhyme or reason for the word chapter. We just thought it sounded cooler than club.
Are you planning on taking over the world with this?
Well, I think that we're not. It's not a money-making venture or anything like that. We like the idea that we could have a map where people could register their games, and if I happen to end up in Beirut where there's a game started now, I could look on the map, where's the game, and rock up myself at whatever time they play, say 3 o'clock on a Saturday, and have a hit myself. I like the idea of being able to unify people through the game of wall ball.
All right, so just tell me, you do need your own wall.
Yes.
And you need a ball, and the ball's called a what?
The Spalding.
And you can't use anything other than...
ABC, I don't want to advertise, but it's a Spalding ball. Spalding make, the basketball the NBA uses. They make all sort of the main equipment that a lot of sports play. And it's basically like, imagine a tennis ball if the fur had been removed with a bit of extra bounce. Comes in all sorts of colours. And
all right, could you make your own? I have seen people in Africa who've...
It's $2.50, so...
Yeah, but we want this to be mobile, and you want to take it to developing countries. I have seen people make soccer balls out of plastic bags and rubber bands. I've seen balls made out of that. So maybe, I don't know, have you copywritten this game? Do you own the IP?
We call it Wallball International. We put a TM at the end, but it doesn't mean we actually own the track.
Good luck with it, Kirk.
But you're right. You can play with any sort of ball that has a bit of bounce. There's no reason why you can't play. Exactly right. And I think that the good thing about this game is, as opposed to the world game, soccer or football, is that in the world game you need goalposts and you need 22 players, whereas in this you need 2. And you need a wall and you need a ball that bounces. So.
Yeah, but you also need a flat surface that will allow the ball to bounce.
Yeah, I don't think that's too hard an ask.
I'm sure there would be some who only have dirt, but maybe they can play on that.
Well, actually, that can be their Sudoku on the ground. The Sudoku doesn't have to be on the wall. It can be, if it's a funny bounce, they can have a Sudoku ground.
Look at you, your ideas. It's fantastic. Thank you, Kirk, and very, very best of luck with wall ball. I hope it'll be in the next Olympics.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for your time, Kirk.
No problem.
Bye-bye.